So we took a different approach for today's class. We've been going really deep into the human mind and understanding nuances in, both psychology and kind of what we call our mental immune system, kind of the very thing that's supposed to help us defend ourselves, very much why cancer and a lot of autoimmune diseases occur. The body is trying to protect itself, but it starts attacking itself, thinking it's doing the right thing. The mental immune system is one of the most misunderstood and not that similar than understanding autoimmune, cancer, and other diseases of the sort. The mental immune system is our mind trying to protect us. And it does the very thing that's against our goals and our sort of own benefit. And so to understand it and understand how to train it, how to master it. So we spent a lot of time there, but we're going to take this class and pull back at a higher level. There's a lot of discussion about what's happening with AI at the workplace, AI just in general, human beings. And so some of it might sound doom and gloom, but it's a different approach that I believe we're going to take here. So let me pull up the slide. I've got a lot of slides here.
We're going to recap last week. If you weren't here with us last week, no worries. We're going to do a quick recap.
So at a higher level, this is the topic we were going to cover. A lot of discussion of the AI revolution. And this is not a AI against the human, but it's understanding there's a human revolution that's occurring in parallel. I was explaining to our team, my part objective here is I hope to get this community to help start that process. And maybe in a bigger way, when I say help start, get together and start to actually put together the building blocks, the team to create the human revolution in tandem with the AI revolution. And they really do go hand in hand. And I just looked up kind of, AI revolution and human revolution and these are some of the images that popped up. Everything from, it's kind of crazy. You see the monkey going into be full grown human being, and then we're back to being a monkey at a computer. And then here we have like now RoboCop type human beings being created of different sorts. And it's talking about harnessing the power of intelligent machines, unleashing the potential of AI. And yet there's a lot of fear that comes with it as well. So how do we think of all these things together? And so we'll talk on something I think that's going to be interesting. Quick recap, last week's class, LIP 270. You can watch the video and get pieces, whatever you want. Conflict versus choice. We talked about how we unknowingly choose conflict. The main topic we talked about, this image here, I'm just doing a quick recap, which is we tend to not apply judgment. We actually tend to walk around believing, well, I'm trying to make a decision. So you know how we're taught that old adage, which by the way is very broken now, think before you speak, right? Like think, pause, take longer before you act. And in the process, we have found a way to almost stop using our own neurons, our own muscles of judgment. And judgment is something that's so fast. We even talked about how human decision-making judgment takes 12 watts of energy that AI will take 2.3 billion or 2.7 billion watts to make the same decision. And so the speed of judgment and how we tend to go into, well, I haven't decided yet. So I'm going to kind of add up the pros and cons and come to a decision. And that decision of choosing maybe, the decision of going logical in our thinking can often lead to more conflict with yourself, but also with other people.
It just makes, this is like completely not what we talked about. I was just thinking something because I forgot a little bit that we're going to be recapping last week and it's making me rethink about what we taught. And obviously in this class, we're not talking about theory always, we're talking about in practice. So a lot of these things are coming from stuff that I'm working on, that Charlie's worked with our team. So in practice this past week, it made me just think about this, that a revelation we've had over the last 24, 48 hours, maybe even the last few hours, more like the last 24 hours, this choice to have a good, what we were saying last night, a good attitude or the right attitude, but it's really a choice to be fully engaged. It's a choice to, there was some quote I remember seeing a while back, which is one of the most difficult skills to learn is to be in a good mood for no reason at all. Like when there's nothing to be in a good mood about, you choose to be in a good mood. No, this was not what the whole class is about, but we were going to maybe try to touch on it at the end. It wasn't what we planned, but this is so interesting. I want to get back to it, but I do feel like it's really fascinating, right? It's the choice to be fully engaged, the choice when it's difficult to put yourself out there or to take some risk. And we were talking about courage. Should we just go to it? Let's go to it.
Sure.
We were going to throw it in at the end, but now you're bringing it back up and I want to talk about it. Yeah. I just when I had the diagram of the choice, right? The choice is to bring say if you look at the bottom from Charlie last night, the right attitude, good energy, full engagement, taking risk, and being ready. We talk about playing in hard mode. I think for most of us, the world is hard, right? There's a lot of doom and gloom out there. There's a lot of reasons we are in a hard mode game right now. So much is happening.
Can I only add, when you said most of us, let's just be all of us. The world uncertainty is the single hardest thing for the human mind to sort of understand, cope with. It's everywhere. So life is hard mode. And if you don't recognize that, the minute you wake up, the minute you start to see what's going on in the world, it just starts in hard mode. And the analogy I used was, those of you who love movies, if you ever watch Clueless, I think there's a new one coming out, right? But there's a first one, but there's a scene where they're like learning to drive with their girlfriend and whatnot. And then I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they accidentally go on the highway, right? And it's like, we're the highway, the notion of literally the minute you wake up, we're on the highway.
Yeah.
And a highway that we might not have wanted to be on.
Right.
And to recognize that's life now. It's highway hard mode the minute you wake up.
Yeah. That's a very hard concept, right? Because I've said to try, sometimes I wake up and I just want to get here, have my coffee, and then get on the highway. No, it doesn't work like that. The highway starts right when I look at my phone, period. That's it. Actually, when I wake up, I start to look at things. But what do you think?
No, I only stop because I think some people say, and that's why I don't sleep with my phone. It's not the phone.
No.
The minute you're awake, you're on the highway. Sometimes you wake up at 3 a.m, you can't fall back asleep. Sorry, you visited the highway and you couldn't fall back asleep. Welcome to just the new norm, new life.
I was on the highway all night last night.
All night. Highway.
All night.
Right?
What is TP? Ready to jam with TP. So a TP, we call it stands for training partner. We used to call it toilet paper. So we take each other's shit. We started 20 years ago. It was TP for that. Then it was team partner,
trust partner,
talking partner.
Right.
Talking partner. We had a framework called Meet Vent Work. That didn't work. Too much venting, no good. Anyways. It's training partner.
Think of TP as our acronym for the smallest economic unit of team.
Yeah.
2 people make a team. Right. And that's the smallest size team. And what we have found in every high elite performing group, the top way to get to be elite as human beings is to create teams of 2. So TP is our acronym for that. And so teaming is ultimately trying to get to teams of 2.
Yeah. Jam is another way of just saying like play, right? Like the idea that you would actually come in and be in a good mood and find a way to do difficult things with a teammate. Our chef, this chef Danny, who a really amazing guy, he talks about jamming in the kitchen, which is like with other chefs when you're not quite sure what you're going to make and you have all these ingredients. I'm going to jam, right? As in, I don't.
Musicians always jam, right?
Jam,
like we're talking about jazz musicians. It's like there's a whole thread about how jazz musicians, like you're literally there is no script. You're just reacting off each other, and jamming often is that kind of iterative nature of doing something. Like ideally not by yourself, but you could jam by yourself too. But the idea of like when people are like jamming and getting in the groove, So jamming with your teammate. Is the ultimate sort of place to get to. Do you want to explain the stuff on top you wrote?
You guys probably have read this. Sorry, I brought this up only because we were talking about the choice that we're making every day. But I said, I feel this is important to talk about as a consistent muscle to build because it is a precursor to good work. And I said, showing up doesn't count, meaning just because you get to work and you're there, just being present in some class or some meeting that you're in, that's not what, that's not the same thing as actually being fully engaged or saying, what is that thing? It's engagement, right attitude. I didn't want to say good attitude because you could have a really good attitude, but you could be faking it with like big smile or things that you do that just put off a signal that I'm in a good mood, but really it kind of all messed up inside. So, and this idea of just taking risk when it's hard, right? Otherwise it's not risk. right?
And
Doing something difficult for you.
And we'll come back to this topic of consistent. I think, I don't know if those of you who like, like, I think for the longest time, I think at least 10 years or more, like I watched Bachelor, Bachelorette, the rose ceremony and all these like kind of dating things, but it's just fun to kind of watch. But there's a notion that in those shows, everyone's on these elaborate dates. They're like, oh my God, first time in a helicopter. Oh my God, first time on a yacht. And it's like, just wow, right? And that's not real life in the sense of that's not what shows up most of the time. And yet all of us glamorize. And with social media, we actually overplay these things that occur, once every year, twice a year, maybe even monthly. And that is like the more fun story to tell. It's where you might get like sort of like wow level footage and video and pictures, but the real knitting, the value comes from consistency. And consistency, and you'll see the best even in the show, they would do like let's just do what we would do on a typical day.
Right.
Like if you can bring that right attitude, good energy, full engagement, taking risk, ready to play hard mode, ready to jam on an everyday basis, that is way harder than anything else. And you do that well enough and you commit and you do that authentically. When you then do something that's intense oriented, whether it's monthly, twice a year, once a year, you will see a higher level of highs than if you do it the other way around. A lot of people live for vacations, live for that intense thing, live for that big monthly gathering or the thing, and you will see something feels empty over time. The first time's amazing. Second time, not as good. Third time, you're like, whatever. The stories sound better than they are. When you do it the other way around, totally life-changing experience. So we're going to come back to that point because the consistency is probably the hardest, most misunderstood component of developing human beings as an individual, but also as a team. So,
okay, so that was, we're going to do the
anyways,
recap.
Coming back to this quick recap, our Laura here has been using Notebook LM, putting some of the different, the previous leadership and practice classes, and it just produces these amazing images. So tool number one to help kind of your mind spiraling is to cinch it. And so I know last class, we had a lot of discussion of dictums and penises. And for those of you who were there, and I noticed that I think the AI coach like kind of filters the stuff. So it like doesn't even answer.
They said, oh no, Charlie, our AI coach is going to be talking about anal and dictums and penises. I was like, oh God, this is really, really bad. This is on Perks at Work. You're an employee. No. Yes, I like that Mia's laughing. Good. I'm glad but our AI coach filtered it out.
Yes.
Wow.
So
we wanted to I don't
no. So we keep it professional, but also recognizing leadership is such a hard topic.
Yeah.
You have to have some fun with it. So we like to have some fun with it, which is why even the naming and acronyms and whatnot, we try to have fun. But anyway, so tool number one is cinch it. This notion of when you have negative rumination and it's starting to distort reality and the loop starts, like this notion of how do you stop your reading, stop your thoughts, stop your thinking, even part way, it is a muscle. Cinching it is actually a muscle you can get stronger. And so that was one piece. The other one was gratitude as a shield. And there's a notion that there are two different pathways. Actually, it's one pathway where you can't drive fear, you can't drive anger in the same pipe when gratitude is trying to come through. So this is also another muscle you can practice. And these things take practice, take reps. So you can kind of look at the lip class and kind of go back to those. But those are some of the quick recaps. All right. So I've called these market data point. It's a way to just bring in other things that we're seeing out there. So there's a couple of interesting topics here, but I'm going to talk about this topic of there's two sides to the human brain. A lot of times we only hear about one side, and the one side makes us believe that it's all about like kind of like, your emotion, protective, immune, or the other side is all about purpose and whatnot. And it's not true. There's two sides and they actually work against each other oftentimes. And that's the key to understanding how to train and develop this. So Paul Graham is the individual who created Y Combinator. It's the top sort of startup incubator in the world. Airbnb and a whole bunch of other firms have come out of there. But he was just talking about something he told this 13-year-old that, how do you say neuroticism? Neuroticism and imagination are closely related, if not identical. So if you're going to be imaginative, imaginative. You also have to be disciplined in order to prevent bad kinds of imagination from bringing you down. And so someone asked me an example and said, lying awake in bed at night, imagining you have cancer because you have an upset stomach. This notion of kind of these two sides, we'll kind of come back to this. There was another article that was talking about rethinking ADHD as simply hyper curiosity. And the challenge we have is in traditional education, it rewards sustained attention to predetermined tasks. And there's a history lesson that we've shared in the previous lib classes, 100 years of how schools were created to create factory workers. Factory workers needed to be trained on how to do predetermined tasks the exact same way. And so that notion of actually turning human beings almost into machines. So they're coming in, clocking in at the same time, punching holes in the same way. So you get like literally factory level uniform production. The idea of everyone doing like Etsy style arts and crafts. So if you get a belt, some holes are bigger and smaller. That's unacceptable. That was not how work was supposed to be. So that's how the school system was built. Yet that is changing rapidly. So this is kind of where some of the nuances
is it changing rapidly though? I don't know. You just said that. I don't know. I don't think it is.
So so when I say it's changing rapidly, it's almost like the head versus the tail.
Okay.
The tail is trying to hold on as
yes.
The head at the front is changing so rapidly. Change is coming at a very fast pace. Mm-hmm. And if you understand it, you can get ahead of it. You can get ahead of it because once again, training human beings is vastly different than training or changing a machine. You can take out all the wrong parts and then just put in new parts and have it work. But with human beings being organic, there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of nuances that you can't change too much too fast. So it takes time. It's actually much faster than people think, but the nature of anything organic, you can't take a human being. I don't think even in surgery, like whether it's heart surgery or whatever surgery, I don't think you can take 50% of a human being's parts out, put in other parts and just assume it's going to run. Like you have to go much more, slower. And there are things that you can then accelerate as you gain momentum, which is a whole different topic. Just two different things. I don't think Amanda's here, right? Oh, perfect. Amanda. So our Amanda, who's here, she ran a First Thursday class and was all talking about how habits form under stress. And we touched on this in Lip 267. The human brain is wired to make sure you live, right? So this notion that it doesn't remember like good times and parties and whatnot. It literally stores the memory to make sure you live, which is kind of something to understand. But there's another side to the human brain. And Jim Fadigan is an individual. He spent a lot of time with us. He invented the Sesame Street characters. So he didn't invent the show Sesame Street, but he invented the characters. He's a neuroscientist, did some amazing stuff over the years. And he's like 80 something. He's almost like 90 now, but he came to find us saying, my work has been amazing, but it's not getting the widespread attention. So I'm just going to dump all of it on you guys because I don't want it to die with me. And he created this program, which had 15,000 low-income public school students in Florida in 100 public schools jump a full grade in all the key courses in 6 months. And so it's some really cool stuff he's done. But the key part he talked about is the brain is wired to do two things. One is to grow, as in learning is something the brain is actually programmed to do. But the other is to protect. And now when you think of when you learn something new, what happens? You tend to fail, right? What does failure do? Create embarrassment, shame, and all the spirals. So this notion of these two things go so counter to each other. It's very difficult for most of us to see pain and difficulty as the gateway to growth, the gateway to learning. You want to figure out something, you might have to do embarrassment reps before you get to a place where you're like, wow, I'm really good at this. The notion of appreciating failure as a key step in learning and growing is something that we're not naturally wired to do. Now, I was saying most of us, if you're into fitness, for example, you might have rewired your training that when the workout gets really hard, that's not when you tap out.
Right.
When the workout gets really hard, you don't do the, oh my God, I'm going to get permanently injured. Oh my God, this is where my body, listen to my body, it's saying leave. You could have rewired your thinking to say, wow, I'm going to get in good shape. This is the moment where I'm leveling up, like where I'm actually getting stronger. And so you actually have trained yourself to rewire when pain occurs in a lot of physical workouts. I'm not talking about injuring yourself, but when it gets really hard, instead of thinking end of life, death, we retrain ourselves. I mean, remember the whole like runner's high, Terry who runs.
Yeah.
I know you are training yourself to get to a place where you go through the pain and you get to that second high. That notion, that's a thing that you train to do. But the growing and protection, they're two opposite sides, which leads to the slide we had shared before, which is when we think of all the training on the human mind, you have to learn to train two halves. The notion of learning also comes with the skills of unlearning a lot of automatics we have. And so one way to look at it is the left side has a lot to do with being resilient, actually being stronger, versus the right side has a lot to do, and I put learning, but fight on its own can be reckless. So I always like to use the word playfulness. When you think of sports, when you find someone, whether it's a child or oftentimes we have grown adults playing a lot of sports now, right? Just even recreationally. Yeah. They come with like way too much fight. I don't know if you've ever seen a dad or a mom even supporting their children, almost like face paint on. And you're like, hey, dude, like I'm all for spirit, but like calm the F down, right? Because this is like a friendly game. But they come into, we're kill them, I'm gonna fucking kill them. Like, it's like, whoa, like there's a part of how do you bring that type of intensity and fight, but not balanced against the level of calm that generates playfulness, right? Like
it's a game. You're like, playfulness is.
And we're watching Winter Olympics right now and whatnot. And they always say the top athletes, even in the Olympics, you will feel a sense of learning. Like this run I'm having, they see it as part of the course in their growth and learning, and they're playful. Like I think Evander Holyfield always is like, the boxer, before he would go on to his boxing ring, I mean, you're like trying to murder someone with gloves on, right? With referees and people watching. It's totally illegal. But like, he'll be playing Xbox.
Yeah.
Like he's playing Xbox and like, like there's a notion of getting playful. It makes you lighter, more agile. On the left side for resilience, awareness is one of the hardest parts. And we were having a conversation about being body aware. I know if you ever meet people who are not body aware, maybe children at certain points, they'll be like walking into like a room that sells like, champagne glasses and whatnot. And you keep bumping into everything, breaking everything. You break something, jerk back and then break something behind you.
Yeah.
This notion of not being body aware, most of us are not mind aware. We are not aware of what's happening in our mind. We're not aware that we are making choices to spiral negatively when you might have to cinch your little, thought or penis or whatever you want to do. And that's from the last class. So you know what I mean? But the notion of being mind aware produces strength. It produces the ability to stay engaged in the game so that you can play on the right side. And when I think about the right side, given how uncertain everything is, we put PPF as a way to think of the past, present, as well as being mindful of your prediction. The speed that you can actually put together lessons from the past, be engaged in the present while seeing what could happen into the future. It happens so fast, right? 12 watts, boom. And you watch someone like, I keep forgetting the guy's name, the soccer guy who's the best. Messi. You watch Messi and the speed of his decision-making, watching what's happening, like literally in the trailing past, engaged in the present, predicting the trend things are on to then move the ball past the ball into what is a trajectory predicted in the future. You have to be so alert to be able to navigate in this crazy, uncertain world, which is the new norm. But you realize that same level of alert is what occurs on the left side, but that's usually called awareness. On the right side, it's kind of noticing the details. So I added two more things only because negative spiraling happens for just everyone. It's the norm. So if you don't do it, I'd say you're kind of full of shit and you're lying. And I just fear for the people around you when it comes out all at once. rock bottom is just part of life, and it's kind of what happens. And I like this notion of just kind of many different ways to think of rock bottom, but best painful gift ever. When you hit bottom, you finally see who and what actually matters. You're not losing, you're being pruned for better. Trust the process even when it hurts. The notion I always think about rock bottom is that's when it tests you. It tests the metal of kind of your true score. You know, like success doesn't really give you a good score. Oftentimes success is sometimes pure, like fortuitous luck of other factors coming together. So lessons and awareness truly is easier to see in stress. For your own self to understand how resilient am I, you know, how good am I in actually innovating and playing offense. All of this occurs giving you a more accurate score under stress. But rock bottom, and I love this idea of pruning for better, like ideas, you know, who in your life, I mean, everything you can imagine, routines. You'll see you have too many routines, too many things you're trying to do. Get to rock bottom. Yeah. It starts to peel down to the most important too. And if that's not good enough, I love this little message. So this person gets, I am here for you. Thanks. I'm going through a tough time. So it means a lot. Sorry, I lost all my contacts. Who is this? This is your Uber driver. I'm here to pick you up. So if the other one doesn't resonate, you can always call for Ubers.
Thanks. I'm going through a tough time. It means a lot. That's great.
Anyways. Moving on. Next point.
I think you're right that leadership is really hard. All this work is really hard. You do need humor. You do. I mean, like, I know we talked about the penis thing, and part of me was like, oh my God, we're doing this, but we're doing this. Kind of, you really do, because it is really obviously in the vein of like playfulness and needing to kind of bring your good energy. You do need to be able to laugh sometimes, you know, because it is really to me, heavy.
Like, I think in the research on resilience, you know, the number one thing that showed up was playfulness. Was the single biggest litmus test of how resilient someone is.
That was the swim team getting.
No, that wasn't the swim team. It was something else. But playfulness is the top thing. So your ability to deal with change, being flexible, whatnot. I mean, even when you're learning, I know we've all had times when we're trying to learn something and you're like, I need to learn it. Like, you know, and someone's yelling at you. You're trying to learn it. You're trying to memorize it, stuff it down, repeat it, trying to act like you're paying attention.
Yeah.
When you're playful, your absorption rate of knowledge is such a higher level. When you're playful, your ability to adopt and even try it is so much higher. And then the iterations of learning through failure, so much easier. So playfulness kind of matters a lot. All right. AI is a coming for us. And what I mean for coming for us, there is so much going on here. So I'm going to start with some doom and gloom for those of you who have children, or actually, you know, anybody, you know, in college. So this was just recent, the inflation adjusted average starting salary for college graduates is at approximately $54,000, the lowest in 6 years. It's the biggest decline or the fourth decline. I guess it's plummeted 24% in real terms since the $71,000 peak in 2021. And you're finding that, I mean, this number, cost of living is going up higher and higher. Cost of college is going up higher and higher. The wage that people are earning after college is getting worse and worse. Now add to it, there was another thing where underemployment, it's getting close to 50%, where it's basically saying, and it's like kind of matches the level seen after the 2008 financial crisis. Think of like 1 and 2 college students coming out getting a job. It's like you could have not gone to college and gotten the same job. You didn't even need your degree.
10 years after graduation, 45%.
Yeah, so it has a lingering, like, latent effect. But then I heard the stats are even worse when you look at high school kids just going straight to trying to work. The numbers are even worse. And these numbers are just getting worse and worse. I mean, you look at the trend lines, right? You can be messy and predict what's going to happen next. It's pointing straight down and things are getting pretty ugly. So this is coming from the bottom of the funnel, right? Which is college students coming into the workforce. And then there was another set of articles talking about CEOs predicting full office return by 2027 amid the remote work debate. It's saying younger CEOs are more open to flexible and whatnot, but most CEOs are not younger. So it's like it's going to be like a good 10, 20 years before they're fully in charge and they can decide what to do. The group that's in charge now, they're moving very fast. Below 83% of CEOs globally anticipate a return to full-time office work in 2027. And usually when you make predictions like that, it's moving very fast. And then there was another article by this guy, Andrew Yang. So Andrew Yang ran for president, and the presidential, and it's sort of very funny. Greg and I actually went to high school with him. He was a year or two younger than us at high school, but haven't seen him since then. But he wrote this article, and so I'm just going to highlight some of what was in it. It was talking about the end of office, the great disemboweling of white collar jobs. That's like disemboweling. It's like sort of like, just emptying out the guts and whatnot. But AI will, so I have like two major parts. I left the middle out because it's mid-career, but AI will automate a massive white collar work and will replace millions of roles in legal, finance, marketing, coding, and other desk-based jobs. Elon Musk is talking repeatedly that if your job is working on a computer at a desk, it's going to be gone, right? And so the question is, how fast are we talking? And a lot of people are predicting like the level of impact you will see within this year. You're going to see it within 6 months, if not sooner. Companies will cut headcount fast because competitors will copy the AI-driven savings and markets will reward leaner teams. Now, this point kind of deserves a little pause. What happens in the markets, whether it's stock market more than anything else, the minute one company does it and then actually sees the stock price goes up, it gives these lemming-like CEOs, which is like, think Fortune 100 CEOs for the most part, literally full boat, go ahead to execute the plans they've been building on the side the minute someone shows proof in the marketplace. And so that is something that is just dangerously about to happen any minute. Mid-career workers and middle managers will face major layoffs. Many will be forced into lower paid jobs after long searches. Bankruptcies will rise as household mortgages, fixed bills will, as they lose income, and stress will spill into family and mental health problems. Spillover will hit local service businesses because fewer office workers will commute and spend, which already has happened a lot. New grads will struggle to get career starting jobs. So more will move home or try more schooling to wait it out. Degrees will lose value. Weaker colleges will close. Expensive programs without clear payback will look worse. Downtowns will hollow out. City finances will weaken and anger will rise. It's like, whew, right? So is AI coming for us?
It's so stressful when we read this. I'm like, yeah, there's solutions. We have solutions. Solutions. Damn is right.
So
damn.
We're going to move to the opposite point. Naval's a well-respected guy in the technology field, but he was talking about how AI is the great automator. And to automate, it must first imitate. The imitation fools people into thinking it's alive. A lot of discussion that AI is a master pretender. AI is really good at pretending. AI is really good at taking something that's worked and repeating it, but it can seem like it's alive, that it's not pretending. Will it get to a point where it's got its own mind and the whole 9 yards and everyone's saying it's coming sooner? It will at some point, but not even close as far as we can see as of now. And I say this because it's important to understand, this is the other chart. There are a lot of talk about, the K-shaped economy is now being used in a gazillion different similar analogies. But one way they're saying is, look, there's high agency plus AI mastery versus low agency and then managed by AI. And so when I think about this, I think the incorrect notion is the focus on AI mastery. Everyone's like, you got to learn AI, you got to learn AI. When you have high agency, and this is referring to the human skill, you add experts, you add other XYZ besides AI. When you're thinking low agency is literally having your own point of view, your visceral like muscle of what your judgment is in any situation actually weaken to the point of disappearing. Now, like most things organic, you can probably recharge it up and build it back up, but you have to recognize the danger of this. So I added this thing with high agency. First and foremost, high agency is about building solo high agency before you learn to build high agency as a team of two, which is what we call TP. But solo high agency includes setup. Setup is physical setup. Setup is routines. Setup has a lot of components. And we're talking about this a little bit. I don't think I put it in here. We're talking about this a little bit about The foundation for high agency, for innovative thinking, for creative, decision making is actually a foundation of rigor, discipline, routine, of that boring, repeatable stuff that you set up.
Yeah, I think that's very counterintuitive, right? We shared it, I think probably in some of the first leadership and practice classes we taught years ago, but there's a whole pyramid that Roger Martin, a strategist, talks about, which is, the foundation of creativity is rigor and discipline. They don't, if you've seen it before, it feels counterintuitive, right? Because you think of people who are really creative and imagination and all of that, like maybe crazy hair and they're just wild and they just no, the best ones are super disciplined. They have rigor. They're like machines, but they're like opposing skills.
To me, when I see the crazy ones who seem to succeed either as a musician, as a writer, or whatever field, in creative field, being undisciplined, that is same as seeing a drunken fool in a casino. Yes, every now and then they can also hit the jackpot, gambling their entire life savings. Like, it is not a good strategy. I would not put dumb luck in strategy. And so what in the research, we spent time with this guy, Roger Martin, who did a lot of research in this, to understand the best in being repeatedly innovative, creative, spend so much time at the foundation, putting rigor and discipline into their setup. And to realize that's what creates success in the top. So think of a two-part pyramid. But you were talking about watching the Olympics and, the ice skating.
The para skating, I like to watch the para skating, the dancing and the skating, but I forget what team, but they were talking about what a great team I forget what country it was when I was watching it, and this is obvious when you hear it, but she was saying you need two, like, exceptional skaters to make a really great pair. You can't have a great pair if one is kind of wobbly and the other one's great. Like, that doesn't work that way. Both have to be amazing solo skaters to make it a really great team.
So in the work, in practice, we've seen the highest agency, as in the fastest, best, repeated decision-making skills come from teams of two, but that team of two requires two solo people with high agency, understanding the value of setup and working on setup. And then there's a whole different setup when you get together as a team of two. It's not the same setup. And this is where a lot of people are like, well, I like it this way, they like it that way. And you never actually successfully build the new type of setup as a team of two. Meaning, one high agency individual, one low agency individual no longer makes a good team. That whole master-slave sort of relationship, sorry, that's probably the wrong analogy, but that notion of the hierarchy and the pyramid where only person with high agency is at the top, the C-suite, the CEOs and whatnot, and everyone else is low agency, that model is dead, if not dying so fast. You need to wake up and realize, I don't want to end up in this red line at the bottom, trending there very fast. And at that rate, you will be managed by AI. And I don't know what that looks like in extreme. Those of you who like movies, you watch The Matrix, right? They just use human beings as fuel, right? Literally, you're just left in some bubble and they have wires in you just to suck you out for fuel. So maybe that's what will happen to you. I hope not. So instead, why even risk it? Let's talk about building the top skill and to recognize high agency is a much harder skill than people realize. The way I think of high agency and judgment is I should be able to plop you into any situation and you'll make 100 right calls, not even in like linear sequence, but you'll just look and just start fixing and just getting it right. Any situation you can plop them into. It could be advising someone, it could be fixing this, it could be parenting, it could be like, like helping a friend, it could be you're figuring out your own stuff. That notion of, we have a huge kitchen island. We have a whole bunch of stuff here. I just put you in there and you just start getting it right. And it's like you move that fast. A lot of people think high agency, one decision. I'm just going to make one decision. It's like one right call. And they focus on this notion of just making one intense right call and you will die. Because it's not enough. You need to be able to make 100 right calls and then every now and then one big call. 100 right calls, every now and then one big call. And the speed of it matters a lot, which is judgment. You have to apply human judgment. And if you are using AI and you think it's all about, oh, well, here's a list of 10 prompts I use, and so you just use that. That's like managed by AI. AI will give you a list of what to do for AI, right? It's like, please don't do that. Like, meaning that might be a good like training wheel to start. You have to learn to apply your own point of view, your own thinking, and the speed of refining what's coming at you, even in AI. You might hire an expert in legal. You might hire an expert in accounting. You might hire a fitness coach, so anyone. This notion of instead of like, well, I hire an expert and I do whatever they tell me to do, they will rip you off. They will make bad things happen. How do I know that right amount of push and pull? How do I know the right amount of questions, iteration? Because you could also get really annoying, right? And take an expert that you hired and then you're like, why don't you just do it yourself then, right? So there's a whole element of judgment that everyone wants to know, well, what is the formula for judgment? I was like, are you asking me to manage you? Like kind of like the AI managing you? Judgment is you kind of figuring out what the right proportions, right things are very fast. So I'm going to give an example. Olivia is here, so I'm going to embarrass you for a second, Olivia. I hope that's okay. But Olivia is such a cool example. It's an example of someone in our community. She worked with our team to learn how to use AI better at work, just kind of learning AI and using it. But she's been training on leadership in parallel. And so I'm just going to totally embarrass Olivia. She sent us a note last week, and she works at like a big, stodgy, like bureaucratic, slow moving. So I'm not even going to mention the name, but like firm.
Amazing
finance,
thing that
right?
you work for, Olivia.
Okay.
Amazing.
Kind of like the big companies, we all kind of like think about the big companies. She, in that kind of stodgy, bureaucratic, highly don't make exception place, she got a 3-level jump to become vice president as of April 6th. This was like, yeah. Yeah, clapping over Zoom, right? Clapping over Zoom,
silent,
right?
No.
We learned sign language.
Sign language.
When COVID occurred.
Yes, we learned sign language during COVID.
It's her now consistently training and coaching. It shaped how I think, how I act, how I make decisions over time. Helped me build a different internal standard for leadership, one that's rooted in self-awareness, ownership, and continuous learning. I mean, this is like perfect type, like, like tweetable stuff. But, and if you want the job, do the job first. But I love this stronger learning mindset. She said, I no longer feel it's unfair when I take on extra work. And this isn't all about, I want you to do yes to everything, work hard on everything. That's not what it's about. This is the part, it's interesting. When human beings make decisions to promote somebody else, and human beings in highly bureaucratic organizations, where when you make an exception, you're opening the floodgates of now every complaining numbskull coming to you, using that exception as an example of why they should also get a 3-level jump, a 2-level jump, or how about 1-level jump? It is very difficult to make. So that means the team of people observing are looking at everything. And this example Olivia talked about was even like as small as organizing a holiday party for the team. And I know those kind of things seem like, oh, it's nice she did that. When you look at someone's judgment, you watch everything. It matters most, of course, where it matters most. So you're watching, can Olivia do the job where it matters most? But then you start to look at her judgment other places.
Yeah.
There's a saying that, the true character of someone is best seen when no one is watching them.
Yeah.
When, it's not important. It's like the generosity of someone is kind of when they're giving when nobody's watching, or when it doesn't even produce any return for them, versus the fanfare of, hey guys, I'm about to give, right? I'm just going to announce it. And then I want to take some photos and videos so I can kind of document and share with the world my giving. Very different. Versus like someone who doesn't even care if anyone knows. I look at this example of the holiday party. People are always watching and seeing signals, and the signals they're watching is not only your true character, the authentic things you're doing, but do you authentically have a higher standard for leadership? Are you authentically self-aware? Are you authentically showing ownership? Are you authentically learning? Do you authentically not act like a victim and helpless, but kind of team needs this, I'm stepping up? And this combination goes far. So I love this example. This to me is an example of this on the right. Like the focus tends to go on AI mastery. It's not AI mastery. AI just happens to be one of the many tools human beings will use. The first comes with actually mastering your own solo high agency, mastering your solo setup to optimize for high agency before you get to a team of two to do the same thing over again now, because a team of two high agency isn't, well, I'm good, you're good, we just get together and we'll be great. Not true at all. Talk about headbutting, arguing, and everything difficult. And the easiest thing to do would be like, screw this, I work better alone. And that's going to be limiting where the level of multiplier you can get to as a team of two, out of control. So we'll talk maybe at lunch. There's a show Aruna and Aram had me watch, or Aruna had, it's called Alone. And it like literally, I was saying, I want a version of that show where it's teams of two, and that'd be interesting to see. But that's a different topic.
Naked and afraid, is that the
Well, but you could end up turning out different ways. But anyways, we digress. All right, going to the main lesson, human skills. Viktor Frankl, we talked about before. He was, I think, a psychologist who survived through the concentration camps. I like this little quote. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. I like this because we obsess on the situation. We obsess on ideas. We obsess on, the work, the mission. We don't think of ourselves, and we don't think of the team portion as another ingredient or lever. So I hand drew this, and then I just asked AI to fix it. So like it just did that. And then
before we go on, I was just thinking, Olivia, sorry if I'm just backing up for a second with Olivia. Everybody's so obviously so proud of you, Olivia. It's like, so we've been talking about your journey for a really long time. It would be interesting to see going back to, if you want to say anything, Olivia, like going back to some of the leadership classes. I know we did a live coaching of you in one session. It'd be fascinating to see your mindset then, right? Because what you're putting in your email, what you went through and your mindset, what it was just a few years ago. I don't remember if it was like a year ago, 2 years ago, but you've been training for 4 years. I guess we met you in 2021, right? So not right when COVID hit, but somewhere in 2021, maybe. It's just fascinating. And I know you've been, well, I kind of want to dissect it. We're not going to do it right now, but even dissecting.
Sorry, Olivia, sorry, we totally surprised you and put you on the spot here.
Just like dissecting, like the coaching, like the better me. Our motto is better me plus better you plus better us. The better me is like working on yourself. The better you is teaching and helping others. And I know you're doing that. I know you do that closely with Weiwei. I think that plays it's fascinating, right? Because I do want to understand it more. I think it's playing a big role. I think it's a piece of it. You're consistently training yourself every week, but then also teaching others. I know you're translating the Chinese English into Chinese for the Chinese community. So like,
Weiwei and Olivia every week takes this leadership practice class, teaches it to an entire group in the Chinese community, including people in China.
That has to do something
like every week.
You, like having to translate it. To translate it, you have to kind of understand it, or when you're sharing it, you either understand it more, you realize what you don't know. So there was really something awesome about teaching, right? Even as you're learning it in the same day. And I know sometimes you change the times, but like you sometimes translating it or teaching it the same day. I know Weiwei, same for you. Like that has to play a role. And I think what's hard is it doesn't always show up right away. Like for you, maybe it's the promotion, maybe the tangible piece of it showed up 4 years in, but 4 years, right? 4 years of training. I mean, you're like early 30s. It's like just amazing. Sorry, just totally like blowing up a little bit, but like the whole thing is like so fast. Would you write? Awesome, Olivia. Do you want to unmute? You guys say yeah. Oh, you are. Go ahead.
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Thank you, Charlie and Megan. So I think this is definitely a long-term journey. It's not like something that pay off immediately. But I do enjoy, I think the most fascinating part is to enjoy this journey. So I think probably 2 or 3 years ago, I'm so frustrated because I don't get the VP role. During these 2 or 3 years, I don't feel the pressure that it's so frustrated that I don't get it, but I enjoy the journey, what I learned and what can I do to change my mindset, also to change, how I would think it's more about the mental model that I don't think it's that I need to do this to exchange for a promotion. It's more about, oh, this is something that's benefits for me. I can learn from doing different things, get different exposures. It's not about money, not about title. It's about to learn.
No, and I like, Olivia, what you did, and it's a nuance. We kind of broke down, we spent a lot of time with a guy named Simon Sinek and broke down sort of the basis of every why statement that occurs in companies and human beings. And it really broke down to one formula, which was better me plus better you equals better us being the world. And meaning every human being is built to first be selfish, to actually fill your own cup before you then fill the cup of others, better you.
Right.
And so that notion of baking into your setup, you built a weekly routine of like learning yourself and then actually teaching others. And when you do that cycle consistently.
So that actually, that helps Charlie actually, because the whole setup, when you were talking before about setup and discipline, we were talking about the best have rigor and discipline at the bottom. What's that setup? That is obviously a piece of it, the setup of learning and teaching. Learning and teaching every week, which is actually what the Thursday is. And I'll be honest with you, we first started teaching this in the first week of COVID lockdown. Everybody's at home and worried about their lives, and we're teaching this. I had a very visceral, holy crap, I can't think of anything I want to do less right now. Like it felt the exact opposite of what I needed, right? Take care of me and my family versus I'm going to be here teaching. And Charlie was the one who really emphasized, I think this is going to be good for us. Just in the same way, I'll say, I think it's good for us to exercise and dance every week. Like, it's like we always had our thing. Like, I think both are good. And we actually did do that during COVID. Even like in our little office, we danced to a class learning or online just because it was like, I think this is good for us. But I remember thinking the teaching, like it didn't compute for me at first during COVID. Like, how is teaching when I'm on empty going to be, you know? So then we would fill our own cup during the week.
So can I tell you a nuance in the teaching that was there? So, Josh Waitzkin spent a lot of time with too. World chess master champion. He wrote a great book called The Art of Learning. But one of the discussions I spent a lot of time on is this: what you teach matters a lot. If you teach something on a loop, you actually become number and dumber over time. A lot of us, because you want the applause and the fanfare, teach the same crap over and over again. And you can try to fake like you're actually teaching it for the first time and whatnot, but like your energy or truth will show through. Like to be in the most cutting edge curve of learning, you're teaching the very thing that you are actually trying to learn yourself, which is taking risk. And that is the kind of teaching where it's like better me. And it's like you have to be just enough. It's like literally a slight stagger step before you teach. Otherwise, you're teaching just garbage, right? You know, when you try to learn something from someone, you're like, are you sure you really thought about this? They're just still confused themselves and whatnot. Like, it's hard to take someone else's energy and time when you haven't put some type of understanding together. But if you are able to get into that flow, massive, which kind of leads to some of the thinking on the slide. And I think what's unique here is this: a lot of us focus on goals on the right side, right? What do you want to do in revenue? What do you want to earn? What kind of job do you want? We focus on outcome and we set goals based on outcome, which on one hand is fine, but you have to realize you can't move the numbers. You can't move outcome just by focusing more and more on the outcome. The actual process of getting results, revenue, outcome is to move one of two levers on the left side. And I say one of two because oftentimes we only focus on one, and that one is on mission. We obsess on, we need a good idea. We need a better idea. Let's iterate our idea. And so you obsess on the idea on mission. But rarely do people think about, you know, the other ingredient is actually ideas on team. Now, ideas and team can be all about up-leveling myself. It could be up-leveling my setup, my routine. It could be actually finding a good person for, you know, bouncing ideas off. It could be finding a good routine to bounce ideas off someone. It could be like setting a ritual like this, where just once a week on Thursdays, it's like going to church for leadership. Right? And mom will be very proud. She's a pastor. But a church for except she doesn't want leadership. She wants God and, you know, different story. But we're not going to do that. But the ideas on team, it's endless. Just like the ideas on mission. And a lot of people think, well, the team side's only about this. It's only about self-love and only about this. No. There's a lot more to it than that. It's like kind of cinching your negative thought. It's like learning how to like, override and interrupt your spiral with gratitude. It's learning actually how to get more resilient and stronger, being mind aware as much as body aware. But then it's actually doing the same, helping somebody else. It's actually finding routines, teammates. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of possible ideas on the left side, just like hundreds and thousands of possible ideas on the right side. And those two levers, sometimes in some combination of consistent effort and every now and then an intense hit, you're going to see results. And the notion of that's how you move the lever. We were talking about even this notion of with the hackathon.
Yeah. Right? Because I've mentioned to my son, he's only 16. He's worried about where am I going to go to college and what major am I going to have? What's the major I should have? This happened last night. And I was like, I don't, you know what I mean? It's like because we were preparing for this class, I was like, because I mentioned some of the stats, right? Of course, my husband's looking at me like, in front of Matthew, why am I talking about this? But I kind of want him to be aware, but he's already nervous. He's got friends talking about it, what's going to happen. And I had been saying, be an entrepreneur, right? Like, look at me, right? Meanwhile, like it's, being an entrepreneur, they say you have to learn to like to chew glass and like the taste of your own blood. So I'm like, well, maybe I won't share that with him. Cinch it. I got it. Cinch it. I put it in the bag so it doesn't get dirty.
Versus, as Danny said, everyone loves, is it sweet and
salty?
No, crunchy.
Oh, sweet and crunchy.
Right?
Ginger ale with a bag of chips is like.
Right. So instead of chewing glass, someone loves potato chips.
I do love potato chips.
Yes. So
I do. What does that have to do with it?
Override the glass. It's like, you know what?
Override the glass. I love
being
chips.
an entrepreneur is learning to love potato chips. Learning to love potato chips and then to learn how to burn the calories out from loving potato chips.
Right. I love to dance.
So, yes.
I can't remember what I was talking about.
Matthew,
entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And his first thought is, Mom, what business? I don't have an idea for a business. And it's always around the idea. What is the idea for my company going to be? So we were talking about it this morning. The idea is actually, if you work to start with working on yourself, right? Which is the team, like learning how to level up yourself. Right. I mean, you're going to get into any situation. Like that's what we're working on all the time. The idea will evolve based on, because he asked me, Mom, what was your major? I was like, oh God, like what we're getting into, it was psychology. It was a marketing minor when I realized, sorry, Amanda, I tried the therapist stuff and I went, holy crap, this is not, I can't do it with young kids, whatever. I tantrumed out of that. And I was like, give me a business minor. I'm going to need a real job when I get out. I kind of panicked. Ended up doing local sales for Charlie. It was a print business back in the day, which blew Matthew's mind last night. I don't think he quite realized that because he comes here. He's like, wait, you did what? I'm like, yes, we were a print business before you were alive in the internet. But selling locally, my husband's like, well, Megan, there's psychology. And I'm like, yes, but I didn't go to school for psychology to think I would go into local sales for a print business working for Charlie. And so then Matthew says to me, but you're doing psychology work now with all the leadership training. I said, yeah. And it's interesting because I said, but that's because Charlie was interested and I was interested. That's in some ways, and some of it is dumb luck too. I don't think there's like a kismic thing that happened, but it evolved based on an interest, right? And two people being interested in it and continually talking about it, which is really kind of what bore the kind of the next jump culture, which then was better me plus better you. I had more of the better me to take care of ourselves. Charlie, more of the better you, take care of others. That combination eventually built out the culture, which then started to build like interest in learning about how do you do that and bringing all these experts in and then building a business on it. So it's fascinating how that's actually the journey.
Sorry, that's a picture.
Oh yeah, you guys. So like look Megan, on the left, all the way to the left. That is me in 1998 or 99. Actually, it might have been 99. I was an intern in 98. I graduated college in 99. Started working full time. But Charlie and the team forced all the interns to be like forced to mark and be on the cover of the book. No, of course I.
Does she look unhappy eating the slice of pizza?
I loved it.
Being fed by a cute intern too?
Yeah,
seriously. Forced, yeah.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It's a victim.
Embarrassed that I had eat pizza, but I remember I was wearing my Banana Republic was like my fancy outfit that day. I was wearing like a Banana Republic shirt.
And there's a book
khakis,
of the book.
Remember khakis were so in.
It's like one of those, if you zoom in, it's the exact book she's holding. So if you zoom in, there'd be book. Wait, what do you mean the book? You're holding a book.
Oh, I'm holding a book.
Actually, this book you're holding.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's so funny, right? But it made me think about like when we were talking about it wasn't like an idea for the business. the leadership stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, wasn't around when Charlie started the college part of it, but it evolves based on the team, I guess, is the point I was trying to make. Which is a really long explanation of. Yes, you figure out the teaming and you keep evolving the teaming and improving on the teaming.
Coming back to this.
And yourself and the team, the mission will change, I guess.
So, well, the piece I'll add to that is this. Megan's son, Matthew, instant thing was, I don't have ideas, right? You think entrepreneur, everything is about, you must have a great idea. I'm like, only inexperienced entrepreneurs think it's about the idea. Any experienced entrepreneur knows, okay, there's a starting idea. And then there's 10,000 iterations I'm going to have to make, and I have to make it fast and whatnot. And everyone does the pivot. It's not about the pivot or whatnot. It's just that life is moving. So if you're not able to keep pace and get ahead of the trends and movements, you're just toast. You're not going to make it. So then how do you get good at that? Well, in parallel, I also have to train myself, find teammates. And so I need ideas on how to do that. And this parallel game I have to play of these two ingredients simultaneously is a very, very difficult thing to do. And people say, well, that's why I'm not an entrepreneur. I'd like to just go work for a large company, right? Well, guess what? That model's getting busted so fast. Good luck on that one. Good luck staying in there. And they're talking about the number of people. I mean, now as an engineer, like you just go back 5 years. Even just 5 years, engineer was like the guaranteed high income paid, and you got easy life, right? Everyone wants you. Not at all. Like it's just like a litter of just engineers standing around now. They were like the hottest in the party. You go to any event, networking party, everyone's like, oh my God, you're an engineer. Can I pitch you my idea? Can I convince you to join my team, join my company, join my group? Not anymore. They just went from the hottest to the ugliest, like almost overnight. And it's like, there's a whole article about like, they're facing what it feels like when blue collar workers suddenly as an entire class just started getting like laid off. And suddenly their skills were no longer needed. Now it's like the exact same things occurring for white collar workers, starting with engineers, and it's just moving down. So anyone using a computer for work, like the richest guy in the world saying, you're next. And it's coming like in 6 to 18 months. That's like insanely scary. And so when I think about the entrepreneur, the idea, what we have found over time is this. If I had to put a ratio of how to succeed, what we have seen in working with the highest of the highest, most elite, 85% here on the left, as an 85% of your time, energy on driving ideas of how to keep getting this ingredient better, stronger, 15% on this side. That's what we've seen. So there's two levers. You think about the proportion, and we keep obsessing on the right side. The skill that's really needed is more on the left side. And the left side isn't just, well, that's why I like to work out or get my sleep. I'm like, that's not even close to enough. Like you're maybe at the 0.5% mark if that's all you're doing. There's so much more of understanding how to refine and even understand kind of this left side. This part here, like we talked about compounding and how the importance of compounding, which occurs with consistency. But a lot of us don't stay around long enough to earn the benefits of compounding.
That's what I was saying about Olivia, right? When we sorry, I didn't mean to end the session so quickly on that, but that is exactly, I feel, Olivia, what you're showing in this is that compounding and showing up, and again, not just showing up, but engaging in, and that whole even
she said, enjoy the journey, which right now is a cheesy kind of thing everyone says. But there was another one I was about to put in, which someone said, people give up on the 47th time. All the benefits show up after 1,000. Right? So who wants to stick in anything for rep 1,000?
Right.
So at some point, if you can't authentically want to do something, right? And we were talking, walking home last night, like a lot of people will hunt to meet someone or to kind of build either a relationship or kind of get an idea. Like you hunt, and that's a skill, just like dating, right? We're in Valentine's Day week, whatever, or the week of, or the month of love, right? So like you learn skills to hunt, fine. But hunting and then actually settling are two very different things. It doesn't matter how you got something, but at some point, if you can't authentically turn it into something, right? We said the whole intensity 5%. There's a lot of events, even in our community. There's like great events once a month and whatnot. We have done a lot of work in this field, and we used to open up our space for the community every month, first Thursday. And people will come, and there's something about seeing someone consistently every month that feels nice, right? Oh my God, familiar face. Remember last time we were food buddies, or last time in this? But something you'll see is missing. When you see someone once a month, you spend so much time doing chit chat on catching up.
Yeah.
And I'm not,
how's it been? Yeah.
It's the same old shit. And you'll realize, wait, are we recycling the same thought?
Yeah.
That the notion of compounding, it's even the compounding as a relationship, does not occur unless you apply consistency. All the work we ever did, the most important way to think of consistency is the weekly battle rhythm. The weekly increment of consistency is actually the hardest to get right, to be joyful, make it enjoyable in the journey. And the only way that occurs, you may not in the beginning have gotten there this way. You might hunt and whatnot, and might like fake and, like just kind of show your best self only, and don't show your ugly side when you're like all like hungry and hangry and whatever else it is. Who cares how you got there? But once you get there, at some point, if you can't invest and find a way to be authentic about it and how you engage in energy and whatnot, you'll see that it won't grow because it won't be enjoyable. It will be like forcing you to be the person you're not quite all the time, every week. And so monthly you can do it, but every week is very hard. And so what we're trying to build here in our community and all the work we're doing is this org design of how can we build the optimal human experience? We go to church and leadership once a week, and then maybe flow into like a lunch discussion, continuing some of these thoughts and bringing kind of your own, life experiences, TV shows, challenges, on a weekly basis. And then you go and maybe do some other work, and then suddenly you're dancing together, and then you're awkward dancing, bumping with each other, trying to figure out, oh my God, I'm going to quit, no more. And then you find a way, you break through just by having a group dance, and you're like, holy shit, I get it now. I want to do this more and better, right? Somebody said that.
Me not be talking about somebody
and then you socialize together.
Yeah.
The notion of how do you create that optimal human experience done with a weekly rhythm. And so for us, I remember when we decided we're going to open up our space to the community every single week. And the first reaction, a look on Kathy's face was like, if she could actually verbalize exact words, I think it sounded something probably like, you motherfucker. Yeah. Like once a month is already a nightmare, and I have tears and pain once a month. Now you're going to generate that pain every week. Like,
that's
what the hell?
Right? Practice, because we used to do academies every month. We're going to do this every week now. And in the beginning, it took a lot longer, right? It was like, it's like we're here till 2 a.m. creating a free class. I was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? But that's true. It's a great habit, but it's a hard and disciplined habit. So the weekly in person. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over for you. I've got baggage. I'm still working.
No, but this is the part, kind of what we started with, ending with, which is this notion of what do you have to bring in consistency on the weekly side? The right attitude, good energy, full engagement, taking risk. And I say taking risk, I know it's easy to even be in a class like this with strangers, and some of us have now become friends, but we're strangers, and some are new strangers. Do you stick your neck out? Do you put out what feels a little bit risky and the real challenge, or do you search your brain for what is the smart sounding question and the smart sounding situation? And as you do more of those, you'll see it won't build, it won't compound. And so the notion of trying to compound the right things consistently, and you do that, you'll see the intense events, the monthly, the once or twice a year, explosive. In a great way. It is literally the same as, I was looking for the emoji, but,
So funny, just made me think about because we dance every week. For those of you who don't know us, we just take an hour dance class, but then when we first started doing a dance, our big events, and all of a sudden we're flash mobbing, a choreographed routine. People are like, how long have you been planning this? We're like, we're not, we just dance every week. So you don't have to create this big preparation. We used to do huge preparations for dance battles. A different story pre-COVID we did, but because we're dancing every week, we can kind of bust out moves without any like preparation because it's just baked into our routine.
I was going to jump just to two things in the parking lot and then open for questions in the online community first, try to give you guys a chance. So if you want to think about, like, either put it in the chat or we can unmute you and then ask even here in person. But for those of you who like Kung Fu Panda, it's like one of those, kid cartoons have like massive wisdom where you watch it like bored out of your wits and trying to just entertain your child. And then you're like, oh, maybe I get a notebook and take some notes. But the first Kung Fu Panda, not to ruin the movie, which I am going to do it if you want to watch it, but there's this, I forget what the scroll is. It's like the magic scroll or something. It's like the scroll that has the secrets of life, right? And this panda is trying to, everyone's trying to get the scroll. And when he opens the scroll, it's empty. And he's like, what the hell? There's nothing on the scroll, right? And he turns it a certain way and you get a reflection of yourself. And that notion of
before you go, Roshanek, before you go, I just wanted to ask you if you're still here. I don't know if she is, but okay, I don't want to cut you off, but I wanted to, before Roshanek goes, there was something you put into the chat. I wanted to go to. Right?
The dragon.
Yeah.
The secret ingredient of the dragon.
Just in a second, before just to go, I kind of want to go to this. I'm sorry. Dr. Roshanek. Yeah, you put something into the chat. When you feel under threat, the prefrontal cortex goes offline, which means your decision becomes compromised. You said considered thought is cinching it. Tell me more. Yeah, talk to us.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hi, guys. Awesome.
Hi.
So, ruminations. So we have about 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. And the vast majority, like 95% of them are repetitive. And I believe that's the statistic. And like 80% of them are negative. I didn't switch that. Anyway, it's a large majority. And then the negative thinking, when your mind and your brain is going through the negative thought after negative thought, and your inner critic is going, and it's like runaway thoughts. One thought leads to the next. It's a domino effect. And this is called rumination. Rumination is when you have these consistent negative thoughts going and going. That's the definition of rumination. Yeah. So rumination lives in a part of the brain that's also part of the default mode network, which also is about memory and self-referential. It's also where our creativity lives. So we want people to be creative, but we're keeping them constantly task focused. It's not going to happen. Einstein was a huge fan of daydreaming because we didn't have that default mode network. But anyway, this part of the default mode network is where we have rumination, also where depression is thought to begin. So the autonomic nervous system, how you have fight or flight, right? So that's your sympathetic. So for people there's an autonomic nervous system that, think of it as automatic, things you don't control, like your digestion, your heart rate, and everything. It has two branches. One is the sympathetic, one's the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is your fight or flight. The parasympathetic is like your rest and digest. So one is the gas and one is the brakes. You have something very similar to that in the brain, where you have one area where the rumination is going and going and going. That's your gas. But there's another one that is like mirrors it, as it were, and that's the brake. And that area is an area for considered thought. They're both in the prefrontal cortex. So when you're having this constant rumination, and you said cinch it, the way you can cinch it, for example, is to journal, is to write something, is to think logically about it. If you have to collect your thoughts and even speak it out loud, that is called considered thought. You're thinking about what you're going to say. You're thinking about what your thoughts are. So because you become very intentional and you shift into a little bit into this sort of awareness and presence and organizing, so you're starting to push into that logic, then it's like the brakes on the rumination. That's the considered thought that cinches these ruminations. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me show.
Think what? You have the logic emotions that we're just talking.
So to make people think you shouldn't have emotions to make decisions, but it's been shown that for patients who have, so if you have your logical area, right, your executive function, and then you have your emotions. So people think, well, I shouldn't be emotional, and then I'll make really good decisions. You cannot make your decisions without emotions. There are patients who have the part of their brain that's logically thinking, and then the emotional centers are damaged. It's, how you hear of measure 7 times, cut once. They measure and measure and measure and measure, but they never cut. You need the emotion to make the cut.
Right.
It's just getting hijacked by the emotion that causes you to make bad decisions.
Right.
There's a notion of like to tame your mind enough. We had this discussion. I don't know if this thing, this was last week's class. Megan had shared this.
Yeah.
And this notion of how often it goes wrong is you don't, and I like what Roshan shared, which is the whole, you don't expose your actual emotion as it's getting freaked out. And the idea of journaling, you can see it yourself.
Like as you're getting into fight or flight, another way to say fight or flight.
But the ability to literally speak and share it does a thing where, and by the way, what happens is this, often we do it, right? You sound like an adult tantrum, and then we tell ourselves, don't do it. So then you kind of don't do it for a while, and then you do it. And if you go inconsistent, going in and out, it is the worst way to ever do anything because you'll never actually get proper signal. You need to stick consistency the right way. The work we did with Peter Gorman invented the heart rate monitors. His point was the human body is actually wired to fix itself, mind and body, as well as do the right thing. But the problem is it doesn't know right from wrong. And the way you're going to be able to get accuracy is the consistency of tapping into what is your visceral, what if you do get freaked out and freaked out too easily, to be able to see it. And if you do it like consistently, you will see not only will you see it consistently, others will see it. It might be painful in the short run. It gets better over time.
Can I boil this down to something very understandable?
Sure.
Everything that you're saying is basically habit. So the body doesn't have a right or wrong, like you said. It just has a state. What is the state that it's in? And so just like you train yourself, you know, there's the trigger, there's the action, and then there's the reward, and that's how you build a habit. If you consistently do something, the trigger could be whatever it is, then your system gets into a habit. It gets into a pattern of activity. And that's what a habit is. It's a pattern of activity. And if you repeat that pattern, if that pattern feels safe, then you're going to stay in that pattern. If there is a threat, because this goes back to what you were saying earlier, if there's a threat to your system, then your amygdala gets activated, the rest of your body, you know, responds, and you had this hypervigilance. That's why I'm bringing that up. You can get into a state of hypervigilance, which means you're much more aware of something. Like if you hear a noise outside, and your nervous system is used to anchoring safety internally, you're like, what's going on? You pay attention, and then you kind of make a good decision about what it is and if it's a threat or not. If you're in hypervigilance, because you've had this threat, your amygdala is a little bit more active, let's just say, and you're scanning the landscape for what's the next thing, what could be going wrong. And it's a habit, as it were. Not exactly, but yes, because you're wiring patterns. And so now when you hear that noise outside, you're like, your mind goes into like catastrophizing. What could it be? There's somebody out there. They're going to come and kill me. Catastrophizing is sort of like the end point of rumination. So you get yourself into one state or another. This is what you're talking about, Charlie, really the whole time, is that you're training yourself to be in this state or that state. And then all the behavior, and that's unconscious, but then all the behavior comes forth from that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what we're trying to figure out is like, and at least for me, like the habits start right from when I wake up, right? Like there's thousands of little habits that are happening, and a lot of them are in the, I'm not aware of them, right? Which is why we keep saying like this notion of being mind aware, like what's actually happening so that you can, cinch it or whatever.
You can do micro practices to slowly reset it to a different state.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. I think we're going to small slide the presentation. I think, was you were doing something on the Kung Fu Panda. I'm sorry.
That's right. I
totally forgot.
I don't know if anybody else, you can unmute, you could put it in the chat. I can jump to any slide if there's something specific. Anyone had? Who? Florence calling you out that you had a question, but maybe not.
I did have a question, but it was earlier on, and I don't know if it's entirely central to where the session went, but
all right.
It was about TP.
Yeah.
And is like, or how do you think about TP compatibility? Is it strictly that each person is coming with high agency, or, what is the discernment to find that right partner?
So it's interesting, given that we're in February, right? Sort of Valentine's Day, sort of finding even teammates, just mates, whatever you want to call it. But I'm trying to go to the slide of the TP. Where was it? So first off, I can't underestimate enough how important to build the solo side first. And it's not that you can't find. It'd be almost like you want to go to the Olympics for ice skating, but you have broken setups and maybe not even aware of setups. You're sort of like, it's almost like, I think of like, if you can get yourself to a place where you're almost plateauing solo, that might be a great time when you're still performing high enough that you can start to build with another TP who's similar. The biggest danger is you find two people who are moving off low agency, starting to build the beginnings of some agency. Remember the last class we talked about being a newbie or the whole beginner phase? You're in a beginner phase, including your own routines, and you're trying to mash with somebody else's. And it's like way too much noise. And I think that's what tends to happen. A lot of people don't know when to get advice. They get advice too early in the process and they're just being swung left and right. Versus, what's your point of view? Are you sure that's your point of view? Let me challenge you, see if you can stick to it. Let me challenge you if you can back it up. Let me see if you can hold on to it. But if you I have a point of view, and the minute someone speaks, you're flip-flopping, changing your mind left and right, it's like you seem to not really know what you're thinking. And you seem to not have a lot of backup, and you seem to be more performance-focused and kind of all the wrong things. That's a bad place for you to partner with somebody else. So usually the middle step before getting to level 2 here, if I had to put like level 1B, would be learning to get advice. Meaning learning to get advice from other people. And you'll see people who are really bad at learning to get advice at this level 1B, they tend to be really shitty at being truly vulnerable. They tend to be really shitty at being truly authentic. They tend to be like really good at being performative. They tend to be really good at not really being engaged. It's like, I know how many times someone asks you a question and then you're like spending your mental energy trying to help them. Yeah. And then you realize they didn't even listen. And then if you can't quite tell, the next time you see them, they might ask you the same freaking question again, right? And it's like, it's their shtick. It's not even like authentic. And so there's a notion of learning to get advice, which means you have to learn to expose your challenges. You have to learn to also have some give and take. You might learn somebody else's as a process of just being better at not working solo. But before that, you have to learn to get great at working solo. Then you get good at not working solo, looking for blind spots, looking for advice, making it really easy for someone to help. And that term that we came up with for that was coachability. Are you easy to help? Are you easy to give feedback to? Are you easy to coach? Once you get to that state, you will find in the process, you find someone that, wow, when I meet with them, I leave better. I leave more energized. I leave thinking I've got the solution, and I come out completely changed in a good way, or sometimes in an icky bad way. You're like, I really thought I had it. Now I'm like totally falling apart. Mm-hmm. But then you realize, shit, I didn't see that. The blind spots. Yeah. And you do this over time. That's when you'll see, hey, do you want a TP? And by the way, it works both ways, because you might find that, wait, I'm getting a lot of value, but they're not. Mm-hmm. And so you are like charity to them, or you're a burden to them. And this notion of how do you make it both?
Co-mentoring.
There's a lot of times where, I have 100 individuals who invested in NextJump. And so when I was very young, most of them invested when I was 24, 53 this shit now. Is it 53, 54? Yeah, right. Around 50-ish. But these are CEO of Merrill Lynch, the founding board member of Google. Some of the highest rated people you can imagine with experience. And how I won them over was genuinely being interested in what they were seeing. And I would often meet with them, like very often. Like I would give them a full presentation on the company and what's happening once a month. And I would make it easy for them to react and just rip it to shreds. And they would see that I don't take all the advice, but the ones that resonated, I'm not only taking, but then I'm firing back at them the minute I see something change. And so it's not like they heard from me once a month. They were hearing from me what felt like almost not real time, but real time as things were happening. And so they were like, that's what happened with that advice. And then they're suddenly curious, like how it's iterating and evolving, like in the real world, in some of the wild. And so there was a learning curve that was going back and forth. And then I'd be like, you know what? Actually, the board member at Deutsche Bank had a different view on that. They iterated this on top, with the CEO of Merrill Lynch had this view. And that combination led to this, that I met with another researcher. And then I met an intern who had an idea. I tried it and turned better than this. And they were like, wow. So the learning curve became like a think tank that was just alive and moving. And it wasn't like just oh my God, you're so amazing. Thank you for your advice. And it really worked out great. Like, and then next month.
Well, think about how difficult it is. It starts with actually you're sharing. I mean, you would bring like 100-page presentation, right? Like it's almost like let me, I don't know. You've been with a big, right? But
the tempo and speed. Like someone will come with a 100-page presentation and the first reaction is, oh God.
Yeah, no, you never like you might have half an hour with them. And the point was you wanted to informate them quickly on like what was happening. And if you knew there was less time, you'd be like, let me point to the most important stuff, I think, and open yourself up for, feedback.
The higher up they are, the general rule is you got less than 5 minutes, right? So if I can't get them engaged and get to the point in 5 minutes, you're gone.
Like to waste.
No, so it's over. But you'll see, like when they're engaged. I mean, I can't tell you how many what should have been 15-minute meetings or 30-minute meetings turns into 4.5 hours, and they wouldn't stop, and they want to keep talking. And so then it's not only 100 pages as finding other things, but like it builds off 5 minutes. That was a long-winded answer, Flo, to your question of how to find a TP.
No, that was great. Exactly.
Anything from here in the group? Carmela?
So I've been in therapy for years, and my therapist has helped me learn you're so imaginative and you use that neurosis to catastrophize. And so actually I used to be terrified of AI. I wanted nothing to do with it. And my antidote to all the anxiety is learning more about it. And I recently was on like a workshop about AI governance, and it really is all about getting ahead of the patterns, because what a lot of people don't realize, AI is a master predictor. It's also a master bullshitter, and it's going to reflect the input that it's trained on. And so how do we get ahead of these issues that are already happening? We look at the patterns that the AI is reflecting back to us. And so this idea of the two halves of the brain working against each other, it is counterintuitive, but it makes sense, like from an adaptation, like survival of the fittest viewpoint, where like the people who cannot keep up are going to be eliminated. And one of my favorite ways to think about this is like lion cubs or wolf cubs. They're not playing just to delight me. They're playing to learn how to hunt, to fight, essentially to survive. And when I be doing Krav Maga before the pandemic, which is like Israeli martial arts that's based on like, it's not about I can beat you. It's about like getting away from someone who's attacking you so that you can survive. I would pretend that I was like a cat when we had time, we do drills, and it just made my reaction time faster. It was like playful and silly. And I'll try to sum this up. I have so much to say. There's an AI like futurist who talks about AI education is not about evangelizing AI. It is about building a life raft for the people who do not want anything to do with AI, because it is coming whether you like it or not. And to Megan's point, I'd never heard about that pyramid.
Yeah.
But in The Artist's Way, which is like a seminal book on creativity, she talks about discipline. Like it's not about that come to Jesus moment. It's about showing up to the page no matter what. Same thing with like jazz musicians. They go out into the woodshed so they can practice sounding awful before they sound great. I'm not into sports, regardless of how many memes I send to Megan on Instagram. But after this past Super Bowl, I got into this rabbit hole about like why Tom Brady had been so good and why like I actually am forgetting the team's name now, but like why they were so good with
The Patriots. You forget the name of the Patriots.
They were my ex's team, so maybe I blocked them out. But part of it is because like he had that seed of decision making. It was like he had eyes in the back of his head. He knew how to use his team as weapons. The same is true of Michael Phelps. Like he had a routine, and so things that would have fucked him up, would have messed him up for the Olympics, helped him win all that gold. So. This last part, and I don't say this lightly at all. AI mastery, I don't say this lightly at all because like I lost someone very dear to me to cancer. AI mastery alone, like focusing on the prompts, focusing on the, just the tactical without the human element is like propagating cancer cells because AI is trained on biased data and it's just going to replicate the same data over and over again. So we need people to up their humanness to create better results and proliferate that. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but that's that's enough for me.
So many different thoughts and reactions. I'm trying to think. There was 2 slides in the parking lot. This was, therapy is very powerful, but it's an over-reliance that creates an issue. No different than medication is powerful. It's an over-reliance on it. I like this little thing Sam Harris had put in this. This is from like a earlier leadership, a lib class here. I'll just make it bigger so you can see it. But it was around your mind is the most chaotic, rambling, insufferable person you'll ever meet. A maniac that follows you to every room in the house and refuses to stop talking.
It's so true.
And I think there's a part where when you said, Tom Brady, eyes in the back of his head, what he's just learned to do is calm down that person, that chattering that occurs. And it's kind of like we're almost, I don't know if you're born with it, but we train it pretty damn quick. You're seeing children with it now at earlier ages. It's when you recognize, wait, that's me, and I can actually train it. And a lot of it's the unlearning training, as opposed to it's like, the whole listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to how you feel and this and that. And then there's like, well, what do I do with this asshole? Right? Like, because this person is like nonstop.
Yeah.
And then I had this other thing that in here I liked where this part of courage is a virtue that cuts across everything. And it's like learning courage usually comes after you learn to get calm enough, because if you apply courage without being calm, you become reckless. You become like dangerous in many ways to people around you. And so that's when you like kind of blow up and whatnot, and everyone starts to like adjust their behavior around you. And so we're talking about this idea of when you feel yourself not thinking straight, to recognize when it's, and so how do I get to that place and then like bring that down? And this is where habits, routines, discipline, as you say, and the word discipline, we have such a negative reaction to because we're wired from 100 years of the industrial. When you think of the word discipline, it naturally has a hidden assumption baked in it. It's an others imposed, others directed discipline versus, no, I'm talking about self-imposed, self-directed, self-iterated discipline. Like a discipline that I am learning and iterating myself for myself versus and I can take other people's advice and ideas and throw it out if I don't like it. But that notion of kind of relearning what the word discipline means, because it always is like, discipline. Ugh. God, like it's my parent, my uncle, whatever, teacher, coach, like, and we have such a negative association and instantly associate that one. The other point, I love your point about the cancer part and the AI, when you say it's a master bullshitter, yes, master predictor, I'm gonna caveat that slightly. It's a master predictor based on data. And what I mean is, I think it was Tim O'Reilly or someone who said this well, where data is always from the past. Something happens and data is created. So AI can only analyze data. And so it's inherently predicting the future to be exactly like the past. And so where AI goes wrong is that it's making that inherent, that's what's built into its algorithm and its just infrastructure. It can only analyze data. So it's believing the next thing that shows up has been seen before. And when you look at what the world's become with everything being uncertain, everything is it might be similar, but it's different. It's new. It's so as a result of it, if you are relying only on data to drive decisions, you're inherently assuming you've seen everything in life that's to be seen. Everything in the next minute, the next step is a repeat of a movie that's been played. And that's not accurate. And that's why data is good to inform. It's good to help you, like what it might predict. But the real judgment, the decision is upon you to say, okay, that could happen again, maybe kind of like that, but maybe not exactly, which is why I'm going to use part of it, but throw the rest out. And so it becomes, like I said, 1,000 interns for you. It's a good tool to be able to access a ton of information, a ton of data really fast, which is why I don't think of it as prediction, even though technically it's word predicting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to life, it's actually dangerous because we think it's so good at predicting and it acts like it's so good at predicting. But I like what you said, tactically use AI. It is like building cancer cells, right?
And also, it's just all this, just what you just said, spawned on me that, okay, so a lot of it is about play, right? I mean, doing things in a joyful and happy way. There's a trap of playing with AI, getting the rewards, spending a lot of time. So yeah, using it tactfully or whatnot, and keeping the play for your teammate or the human. So maybe we should, I mean, just thinking of the having fun, but in real life, not online. When you watch a show like Alone and all that, I'm sure you're taking notes actually. But being
we have a good discussion of that.
But being an actor, like, okay, so I watch entertainment to literally think of nothing, but it's 6 hours I would spend. It's real time that's actually spent with that. To actually not do that with AI or with the internet or with social media, really, social media is a tool for work for me.
Yeah.
For me, it's not. I will not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at what trip people went on and all that. I'm going to really post and leave. But and so the time that you give to this technology is probably we should take the play out of it.
Yeah.
And keep the play in the old.
But you know what's interesting is this: when you think of seeing the word playfulness show up in the research for resiliency was fascinating. When someone uses the word resiliency, you don't think, oh, it must have been a party, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're all talking about resiliency, after celebrating winning the Oscar. So it's not, resiliency is used when the situation is tough, when it's hardship, which is why I use even the rock bottom. And so playfulness is the exact opposite thing you'd imagine showing up when it's difficult. And yet that's the very skill, right? The very skill. When Tom Brady looks like he's got eyes in the back of his head, it's because at that moment with incredible stress, he's able to drop this asshole chatter that's saying, oh my God, everyone's watching you, and this is the moment you fail, you choke and whatnot. He's able to calm that down enough and to override it and find a way to say this stress, right? This idea of rising to the occasion, like this is testing my mettle on how calm I can be under pressure, right? And you know that notion of, do you ever ask it's like prompting yourself, I wonder what it takes to break me. I wonder where my breaking point is. I wonder, and it's like, I know you can look at it saying, oh my God, so it doesn't matter how low it is, but it's nice to know what that score is, to saying that's my training point.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to train it. And then saying okay, can I actually have fun in a stressful situation? Yeah. And can I generate it, right? Because, the thing I was pulling up before is that, coming and starting the day with a bad attitude is actually a habit, except we don't even see it as a habit. And a habit meaning you can choose them. Yeah. We don't even see that I'm making choices. I'm choosing it, but sometimes I'm choosing it through compounded routines. So it's like, you might be like, I didn't make a choice. And we're like, yeah, you made choices earlier. You compounded it. It's now so automated, you don't even see the speed that it's occurring. And then you're able to slow it down so you can say, wait a second, like, I am choosing that, right? I'm choosing when I scan the news first thing in the morning, I'm scanning for what are the horrible things that happen, right? And I'm scanning for the emails that have like things that alarming, or like I'm scanning for, you don't even realize, right?
But also anxiety is highest in the mornings from like an evolutionary perspective of like, we have to like hunt, our brains are thinking we have to hunt or move. So it's like,
but here's the part to unlearn too. Like, we're not actually, like, that show Alone was all about hunting for food, and you see the stress of hunting for food.
Actually,
like there's like 10 people that go alone. You have to see who survives the longest, and you have like, it's like horrible conditions and freezing, and animals could eat you and all this stuff. When I watch a show, I think it was like 8 out of 10 literally mentally spiraled out. The reason for quitting wasn't actually physical. They mentally couldn't get themselves, the mental spiral, meaning like we're saying, like hunting, we're waking up, is the real actual concern, shit, I'm not going to be able to have any food today. Right? Like, we have a bigger issue, which is I got to try to not overeat today. It's a total opposite. But we can act like, I am waking up with this deprived state. Yeah. Right. And if I don't like get my cortisol up and whatnot, like my life may end kind of narrative or feeling. And it's not the case, right? Today's the day. If I don't make a good move, I'm not going to be noticed. I won't get promoted. I'll be ostracized. I was like, God, everyone's neurotic on their own. So like, they're just so busy watching what they're like, there's a notion that like, it's actually more made up in our heads. And so like, I think there was another slide of this earlier, Leadership and Practice, we showed a data point. Someone was saying 99% of the problems are actually made up, and the 1% is real though, right? But do you know the difference? That's where the problem is, right? And then can you start to just dial down the 99% to 98, 97, 90? Like, and just the act of even chipping at it says, wait a second, maybe it's possible that I could like turn the volume down on this maniac who just is insufferable from the moment I wake up, right? Like, and to realize, wait, it's choice, right? And sometimes the compounded choices are the hardest to see because it's automatic.
Yeah, it's, to me, it's, well, obviously, like you mentioned before, it's a learned skill. It's not really inbred in all of us. I guess from a young age, we're taught to, kind of learn how to survive.
Yes.
The hunt for food and shelter, that kind of thing. But at times, if you train yourself properly or you go to the proper training, you will learn how to, like you said, tune out those emotions, the background noise that distracts you from what you need to do. Basically, what I was taught was like, hey, you have to go on autopilot, literally. You have to shut everything out, focus on the mission, and get it done. At all costs. So basically, but the issue with that can be also is that you have to find a balance. Yeah. Because if you utilize that too much, you tend to tune your loved ones out and everybody out, literally, and relationships do suffer. So basically, there was a situation. Yes, a long time ago. I was activated, sent off to overseas. Didn't know what was going to happen. And basically, my family was worried about me. They were in tears. And it was an emotional time. And all I could do is I just turned it off, everything. And basically, I just knew I had to get to the base at a certain time. I've got to get going, organize myself, get my thoughts in order, and prep for the missions that are coming. Right. So, in essence, you become a warrior, fortunately. And
but what's interesting is this. I know we did a lot of work helping the military in different parts, and they would always say, to basically perform well in operations, or when you're like kind of in real war, real, like when you train, you want to die in training, meaning you want to get shot in training. You don't, because those who get shot in training tend to survive, and like when they go in operation, they go on the field in war. But those who have a perfect record in training, right, fall apart, and it's real. And so this notion of and we had this whole discussion with Jim Lear, like the reason why sports is easier is only so many game days.
Right.
Like the difference of just regular life for most of us, every day is kind of game day. But so then how do I find room for training? And how do I make training part of my all the time? And how do I actually push myself to actually fail and almost feel like dying in training? Which is saying, how do I kind of, skin my knee? There's a book, Blessings of a Skinned Knee for Children, not Blessings of a Broken Leg, right? It's like a difference. Yeah. But how do I push myself to see where my failure points are, my breaking points, and make that part of my automatic at least once a week, if not daily at some point, so that as like the real important stuff comes at life, I've experienced what the ugly failing looks like, so I can be calm. Like, which is why veterans tend to matter a lot. Veteranship in sports, but even in in military, any like first-time person, right? They were like perfect, like in training, and then they're freaking out like when the real thing happens, like the first-time firefighter, right? Train for this, and then they just fall apart. Like this whole notion of how do I keep up-leveling my training, which is another way of saying, how do I keep pushing myself to the point of failure, to the point of breaking? How do I understand my own, like breaking, like even at an emotional level? When does my mind just like my thinking just completely shuts down, right?
Usually that begins for anybody in the military at basic training.
Yeah.
Because that's where they weed out the people that break easily.
Yes.
And you get a lot of people that just separate and I want to go home, that kind of thing.
Totally.
And the drill instructors are constantly monitoring you and seeing who are the strong ones and who are the ones that are going to break, and what buttons I need to push to get them to break, because they want to, that's their job, to weed them out.
Right.
And basically, like you said, even when you graduate from basic training, you're constantly updating your training mentally, physically, and everything along the way.
And I think what happens is this, like the military has obviously a huge piece and they've done very well. But like, I think you also know they don't prepare a lot of military folks well for life afterwards. And this is the part, like it's crazy where life afterwards is often harder than it was in these controlled, and I say controlled, it's like life afterwards has a lot more stuff at it than sometimes like just being there with my troops in a set of rules. And, like there's a part where operating in a certain rule set box is actually easier for us.
I was going to say one example, because it's not so life and death mission wise, but like a hackathon is a few days, and in that controlled setting, they can start to spin out. You'll see it. I mean, if you want to come and observe, you can see where like the teaming and oh, now we're running out of time and you suck, I don't suck, and all the conflict and dysfunction happens, but they can perform because they know we got to get this done. And all of a sudden it's like somebody's coming around and mentors, and you got to move to this stage, you got to move to this stage, you got to move on. But regular business, we always talk about this, especially with sports, military, the business mission can seem like, it's not as life and death, but it's every day. Yeah. And the mission might change, and you have to be alert to if it should be shifting, and who's making that decision? You are. So it's like, and then where's practice time versus mission time? That's actually a big part of why at Harvard, when they did a study looking for like deliberately developmental companies, put us in that book, because we found a way to put development through the work. Because otherwise, if you're only doing training day, like I think about school professional development day, it's only one day, like a month, maybe not even, that they have to develop themselves. One day. That's like, it's nothing, you know what I mean? But we're finding a month, right? Like we're looking, even every week you guys are here, you're doing it, but like, how do you build it into your every day? Like this is an important, if you're saying 85% is in that team, that slide that you have on team, on self and team, 85% of the value or the benefit is there. You can't just spend like one intense day a month, like training, right?
No, exactly. It's every day. It's rehearsal.
I think it's hard to conceive now, even with AI and other tools and the speed things move, that literally the human mind is not only the most lethal, it is also the most powerful. Like, and when a one human mind, when it's paired right with another human mind, I mean, unstoppable. Like almost like nothing is not possible. But it will take time. It might take the 1,000th iteration. It might take, like 500 failures, and it might be self-induced to make it more challenging. And you might actually find like your courage is tested at the highest level. You might find like, all the garbage that you've packed into your head that you thought was the golden rules are like kind of like shit rules instead. Like there's a bazillion things like that will show up.
Wisdom comes through iteration, right? It comes through experience.
As long as you don't tap out. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Have the courage to stay in it and put yourselves out there.
Yeah.
But I guess I think of tapping out as the low bar.
Yeah.
Because like,
the reality.
I promise you're going to eat
tapping out
today.
Yes.
You'll eat tomorrow, right? Like meaning like we're not truly tapping out.
Sure.
I'm not talking about the most extreme when you actually truly kind of tap out, end your life. It's not that. It's like most of us are sticking in.
Yeah.
But we fall into that complacent zone.
Yeah,
right.
That's why at a young age, when you're teaching your kids, or even working with other parents' kids, it's really important to try to teach them some goals or some leadership skills. Case in point, me and Mary started a first robotics team in the area many years ago at our local school where our son attended and our daughter. Anyway, long story short, these kids were out of control. It was like, and we didn't have any funding or anything in the beginning. We were basically in a hallway somewhere in the school. They wouldn't even give us a classroom. But we got the mat, we got the robots, we got everything going. And, at a young age, we started teaching them how to organize as a team to work together. Because, kids are like, oh no, I want to play with the robot.
Yeah.
No, it's my turn. They start crying and arguing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they each learned a role. And I'm not saying they kept to that role, because obviously they're children and still learning. But as they get more advanced into the challenges and up to competition day, which was at the Javits, which was a big deal back then, you kind of see them evolving, and learning. They're not perfect, but you can see that, hey, they're being cohesive. They're learning how to work together,
right? And
they're following their own jobs and assignments.
Yeah,
somewhat.
But so this is fascinating. Like usually in the hackathon, I've given this talk. I just kind of wrote. I can't remember exactly what I shared because it probably iterates a little bit. But generally, I told them about the 3 phases. You start in the first phase is all love. Right? I love my teammates. I love every idea. I love the technology. I love the food. I love the space. It's all love. Yeah. Then you hit the second phase where you're like, oh shit. Right? It's when like reality starts crashing down where like, wait, we don't have a lot of time. We blew a lot of time, right? Our stuff's not working. We can't do all of these ideas. We need there's all the challenges start showing up. But to me, the last phase is where it tests your mettle. That whole, you push through, you figure out, and not all teams get there. A lot will tap out. A lot of people will, and you'll see the dysfunction where they start like finding ways to talk about teammates behind their back and just bitching and complaining and just kind of like one person's like, screw you, I'm just going to do it. All the worst shit starts to show up. And to realize, wait, to be able to hit that and know that's normal, and then find a way to get back to love and teammates and even the ideas to then go like this cycle, to repeat the cycle and push your own self higher and higher. Very hard to do. Yeah. But once you learn to do it, like it's like you just master challenges better. And we keep talking about better plays. Like you can never predict what will happen, but you'll make better choices, better plays, and that's the place to get to. So,
when we did the Lego team, our biggest challenges was the parents. It was really a tough challenge because trying to tell the parents to not, we wanted them to get involved, but we wanted the children to do their work. And me and Hector would constantly sit on our hands during competition day because we were not, there were certain things that you were not allowed to do. You couldn't touch the computer, you couldn't touch the robot.
Yeah, the team would be disqualified.
And the issue was, it was always, our biggest challenge was the parents, not the kids. It was the parents.
I totally believe it.
Greg always talks about that for sports too, right? Kids sports that parents have completely ruined.
Yeah, Coach Matthew talks about it. I mean, youth sports, they say, is ruined by parents, not
That's too. That's the reason why in chess, the parents are not in the game area. They're in the hallway.
Yes. No, and I think what's interesting is this. I mean, like my first thought is being able to maybe, if you did it again, start by sharing the stats that like for youth, whether it's robotics or sports, it's the parents that ruin it. And here are the stats. And then you might even ask the parents, so I need all of you to help us police each other, right? From the temptation to jump in and make it a competition about the parents, right? Not the kids. And to rob the kids of every lesson, right? I don't know if you're doing it again, but
Well, every year I would, I would try to, like you said, I would have the stats. I would say, this is the stuff we need. This is what parents, this is your responsibility.
yes.
Kids, this is your responsibility. We had different categories like social media. How are we going to promote ourselves? How are we going to do? But then again, these were kids that were, elementary, 4th and 5th grade.
Sure.
And then you go higher, it goes into middle school.
Right.
And then high school. It's supposed to continue.
Right.
And just like a hackathon, there was the high school and college division. But again, you have your elementary school kids who, they say, oh, Legos, great. Let's play Legos. And then you have the parents. It was very hard. And, every year we would have the rules. Sometimes the rules go out the windows because, that's how parents are.
We did a lot of work over the years in our leadership academies, training public school teachers, principals, the vice principals, the whole leadership teams and staff, and including colleges. And I think one of the biggest sort of reflections I remember back was when they realized half the problem is them. Like the learning and the inability to get proper learning, half the problem was them. They were so uncomfortable, like with some of the things that they couldn't help but interject, coddle to, even they couldn't. Teacher to teacher hostility, holy shit, more dysfunctional than anything I think probably I've ever seen out there. It's in the top tier, right? It's like watching high school bullies in the worst way and whatever, like teacher to teacher hostility. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, there used to be a TV show just on that. Because if you got some behind the scenes, you'd be like, oh my God, they're the ones teaching our children. So that's the stuff then for another class.
Yes,
But,
it is.
All right.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. No idea. We're going to talk about the fun part.
Okay.
All right, you guys.